When we hear the word witch, certain characters, shows, and movies come to mind. The characters I instantly think of are the Sanderson sisters, Sabrina, the Hollowell sisters, and Hermione. If we include more classic media, I think of the Wicked Witch of the West and Glinda, Maleficent, and Samantha from Bewitched. As we all know, these characters are a staple when discussing the most iconic witches that have had a lasting impact. I'm sure that there is one thing you've noticed from the characters I've just listed. They lack diversity. Within the last decade, more racially diverse magical beings, and specifically witches, have become more common. Some of those common favorites include Bonnie Bennett, Marie Laveau, Queenie, Carmen Aguiluz, and one of my personal favorites, Prudence. Even though this specific character archetype has become a lot more diverse within the last 20 years, before the late 2000s, there were very few examples. Some of those older examples include Roz and Eve from Eve's Bayou, and of course, Rochelle from The Craft. When Rachel True first heard about an audition for a teen movie that focuses on witches, she knew she would be perfect for the role. At the time, she just started practicing tarot and felt connected to the idea of playing a witch. Initially, she wasn't offered an audition due to the main characters being written as white. But despite knowing this, True pitched herself to an agent who then vouched for her and got an audition. After several months and 4 rounds of auditions, she was finally cast as Rochelle. Because her character was originally written vastly different, the screenwriter Peter Filardi and the director Andrew Fleming decided to rewrite her character's story. In the original script, Rochelle struggled with bulimia, which we see an example of in this deleted scene.
I mean, Nancy, I think it's totally possible that you could get hooked to the craft, just like alcohol, or food.
But in the rewrites, her story focuses on the racism she faces from a classmate named Laura and company. To really understand Rochelle as a character, we first have to look at the core 3, which consists of Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle. From their very first scene, the defined roles in their friend group was made apparent. Nancy is the leader, Bonnie is the timid and shy one, and Rochelle is sort of the second in command. She speaks her mind, but she also still follows Nancy. She's basically the Gretchen Wieners of the group. Nancy also is the only one who gets to make all of the decisions. Like when Sarah approaches them in science class and asks if she could sit with them, Rochelle says nothing but looks at Nancy to give that permission. The only one to speak up after Sarah walks away is Bonnie, who whispers,
"No, you can sit here."
To further back up this idea of her being second in command, Rochelle was also shown being the mouthpiece for Nancy. Like when they first approached Sarah after school, Rochelle apologizes on Nancy's behalf, even though Nancy is standing right there and can speak for herself.
Nancy's sorry about what happened in biology. She's mean to everybody, so don't take it personally.
I guess she's more like Muffy than Gretchen, but you get what I'm saying.
By Alana scoffing at your suggestion.
She speaks up more when you compare her to Bonnie, but she still follows Nancy. Now, I know I just called Rochelle a follower, which she is, but she was also shown to push back on certain things and speak her mind. If she didn't like something that Bonnie or Nancy said, she would speak up. And when she had an opinion, she would voice it, even harshly sometimes.
I think she doesn't want to be white trash anymore or something. You're white, honey. Just deal with it.
Because Rochelle's solo plotline revolved around her being the only black student at her school, this story did receive appreciation for being depicted, but it also received criticism from both viewers and True herself. True says, "The story was originally bulimic, by the way, then they hired me and switched my story to being about racism. I found this interesting as a black woman because when I got the new script, I remember thinking, yeah, okay, people are racist to her. What's my actual storyline here? What's my actual problem in this town? Like Bonnie is burned, Nancy wants to end herself, and so I'm like, yeah, it's a problem, but it is what it is. So what's my actual problem, you know?" Because plenty of black people who attended a mostly white school have experienced the same thing Rochelle has, I do think this specific experience deserves to be portrayed. The only issue with this plotline was that Rochelle's problems aren't tied to her inner life or inner struggles. We never got to see how Laura's actions affected her internally, or even if Rochelle's family was aware of what was going on at school. The only time I feel like the movie may, and I really mean may, have shown how Rochelle feels happened so subtly that I'm not even sure if it was intentional. When they're all asking for what they want, she actually calls Laura
Racist pieces of bleach blonde shit.
and asks Manon to help her not hate those who hate her. Later in the film, when Sarah was showing them her glamour magic trick, Rochelle specifically asked for blonde hair.
Make me blonde. No, make me blonde.
This could be due to her being bullied about her curly hair, and she might have developed a dislike for her hair texture, or maybe even assume having blonde hair would make her classmates more accepting of her. And this is not to say that black people don't have blonde hair, right? But in the context of this story, this could be an option. I honestly fully don't know because her internal struggle wasn't made apparent enough in the movie. True also went on to say, I remember thinking, do they see my blackness as a problem? All the characters have issues, and to me, being black wasn't an issue. The way other people treat me for being black is the issue. But once I really thought about it when I got older, I realized it's a good thing that they have it in there. We'd come out of a time where we had things like The Cosby Show, where nobody ever mentioned racism. And here was a movie that tackled it head on. The movie does try to attack racism head on, but the way it was resolved, it felt very incomplete. So there's a scene where they all arrive at the party and Laura tries to talk to Rochelle, but then they cut from this scene and we never see how this conversation goes. I do think including this plotline was important, but it only works if the story focused on how it impacted and changed her. The other three characters had some sort of evolution, for better or worse, by the end of the film. For example, Sarah tried to unalive herself due to her depression due to the loss of her mother, but she overcomes this when she fights to save her own life. Nancy is angry all the time because she is poor and has a terrible home life. She lets her anger get the best of her and ends up in a mental hospital. Bonnie has low self-esteem due to her scars, but once they disappear, she finally comes into her own. So much so that she becomes extremely vain. All these characters evolve internally besides Rochelle. Rochelle does eventually get Laura to leave her alone, but we never got to see how this changes her. She seems more confident later in the film when she is walking in the hallway, especially when you compare it to her opening scene. But that's true for all of the characters. They all walk differently, so this was not specific to her story. During Laura and Rochelle's first interaction in the film, Laura harasses her after swim practice and when she's practicing her dive. Her constant bullying was nonstop, and in one scene, Rochelle did attempt to defend herself. After the hair comment, she asks,
Why are you doing this to me, Laura?
and Laura responds with, because I don't like Negroids. What the fuck? Knowing that she's in such an isolated place, it's understandable that she struggles to fully defend herself and cuss Laura the fuck out. She only talks to Nancy and Bonnie, Laura is a popular student, and the rest of her classmates equally isolate her. Or at least that's what it seemed like based on this deleted scene.
When I met you, no one could even talk to you. Only black girl in an all-white neighborhood.
What's most sad about her classmates isolating her is that she is the only one in the friend group who seems to want to have a regular high school experience. She's the only one who participates in an extracurricular activity, and despite the intense bullying, she shows up to practice each time. I think this says a lot about how much she wants to fit in and just be normal. To add another layer of isolation, the only person who has her back in these moments is herself. In an interview, True acknowledged this as well. She said, I do find it interesting though that the other three characters never say anything about it. Not one of them is ever like, that's too bad that she's racist towards you. I don't think they would do that today. Sarah did help and snatch a piece of Laura's hair for the spell, but as friends, they never talk about or address the racism she faces. Rochelle is such an interesting character because she also was the only one who seemed to go back and forth emotionally about what they were doing. Even though I think she has more than enough reason to do what she did, she still seemed remorseful. Like when Sarah is adding Laura's hair to Rochelle's for a spell, she asks concerningly,
What do you think will happen to Laura?
Sarah says that she'll finally leave her alone, and in a matter of days, this becomes true. During practice, clumps of Laura's hair starts to fall out right after harassing Rochelle, and Laura's panic puts a smile on Rochelle's face. This constant back and forth of being concerned but also happy about Laura's karma is a reoccurring theme. In one scene, Rochelle would be gleeful that Laura's bald.
You guys should see her. She has to wear a hat every day now.
But later, when Laura is crying in the shower, she feels sympathetic. In an interview, True explained that she actually made the decision to make Rochelle feel sympathetic. She says, "Oh yeah, I played it that way," which was a little out of alignment. Everyone else was gleeful and cackling when their wish came true. I made a choice because Rochelle's black, and even if you want something terrible to happen to someone who's done something terrible to you, my feeling was that she's been through it. She knows what it feels like. And so Rochelle had that moment because she's black, unlike the other three witches, where she thought, oh shit, I really have physically hurt someone and I'm a little freaked out. Because Rochelle knows how it feels to be hurt by other people. I actually do think this was a good choice because it not only created another layer for her character, but it also showed that she is a little kinder compared to Bonnie and Nancy. Along with Sarah, she was the only other person who seemed to question their actions or be a tiny bit concerned. Like when she asked if they could have killed Ray.
Do you think we killed him? No.
Or when Liero explains that what they do to someone will come back threefold.
We didn't read that in any book.
I also noticed that out of the core three, she was the only one who tried to get to know Sarah. When they hang out with her for the first time, Rochelle is the only one who asks her about her life.
Sarah, where'd you live before? Why'd you move?
And later into the film, she also asks her about her mom.
Who's that?
When you compare these moments to any conversation that took place between Sarah and Nancy, and specifically the one on the beach, there is a stark difference. During the beach scene, when Sarah is trying to open up and talk about the worst time in her life, Nancy could care less. She's listening because she will use this information against her later, but she's not showing any interest or sympathy. Despite Rochelle being the only one who seemed genuinely interested in getting to know Sarah, I actually have an unpopular opinion about the core three. Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle were mean girls to Sarah from the very start. To back up my claim, let's just go back a bit. After Sarah hangs with Chris and he spreads that false rumor about her, the core three decide to use this information to convince her to join their coven. In this scene, all three of them are smirking when they deliver the news to her. It's like they enjoyed being right opposed to feeling bad for Sarah. Chris lied and stained Sarah's reputation, but to them, if he never lied, then Sarah would never become an outcast and she would have never joined their coven. And I think the worst part about it is, if anyone should have the most sympathy, it should have been Nancy because she's experienced something very similar with Chris. Rochelle and the other two were manipulative in other ways as well. Like when Sarah is showing off her glamour trick, they try to make it seem like what she did was insignificant in order to egg her on to do more.
Yeah, but it's good. I mean, it suits you.
Sort of like they're saying, impress me, even though she's the only one with actual powers. Rochelle also helped in haunting Sarah's dreams, threatened her in the bathroom, and told her to leave the planet.
Where the planet?
She created a glamour that showed Sarah's parents dying in a plane crash and helped orchestrate a fake self-unaliving. In one of the final scenes, she does finally push back.
This whole thing is just no.
But nevertheless, she still helped. Even at the end, when she, along with Bonnie, came to apologize for everything and claim that it was just a practical joke, it's clear that she's only doing so because she and Bonnie are powerless without Sarah. She even says,
she probably doesn't have any powers anyway.
When Sarah turns them down, which to me shows me that she didn't care much about Sarah. She only cared about what Sarah could do for her and the coven. The craft premiered on May 3rd, 1996, and was deemed a sleeper hit when it opened at number 1 at the box office. Despite the film's massive success, True did express that during this time she was not receiving the same treatment as her co-stars. She says, the publicity team put up a poster of the 4 of us, mentioned the 3 girls, and then skipped down the call sheet. I think this is how black actors get underpaid. This is how they get forgotten. And it's part of why I mouthed off about the publicity back in the day that I was excluded from. At that time, I don't think my castmates understood. They were like, you're not as famous as us. What they didn't get is that in the early to mid 1990s, the studios excluded the black person, which meant they were never going to be as famous as you because they didn't get the press. This is not shocking to hear because there are many other cases where black actors were not promoted or a part of the press run for their movies. A few examples that come to mind are Ernie Hudson in Ghostbusters, John Boyega in Star Wars The Force Awakens, and Kiki Lane in Don't Worry Darling. This exclusion would continue on decades later, and in 2019, True publicly criticized the convention circuit for leaving her out of the cast reunions for The Craft. She also called out multiple streaming platforms for failing to acknowledge her as one of the film leads, one even categorizing her as a supporting actress, while her other three white co-stars were considered co-leads. Shortly after calling them out, she was invited to appear at New Jersey's Monster Mania Con, where she reunited with the cast for the first time since the film's 1996 release. True explained why she continues to speak out. When I was growing up, there were textbooks with photos of women labeled only as women or dancing slave. At some point, these women had real names. I might not have spoken out when I was younger, but now I see the same erasure happening to younger generations. And I feel like it's important to use my voice for myself and for them. Sometimes I think that even my co-stars don't understand what that role at the time represented for black women and girls. It wasn't about me so much as what it represented to other girls at that moment. As someone who grew up watching Hocus Pocus and Teen Witch, seeing Rochelle on screen was so essential and important. That's why, to me, she will always be in the forefront when we talk about magical characters, and specifically witches. She was dynamic, powerful, complicated, and truly needed at that time. I want to say thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. I appreciate it so, so much. Bye!
I love it, and I know that originally the script, I believe, was probably for white girls. That's what Andy had said, but I love it that all these little brown girls everywhere, whether they're black or Spanish or whatever, had someone to relate to, and they come up and they tell me that all the time. So I really like that. There's someone who looked like them in the movie, so they could relate to it.